Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. I want you to consider this statistic. And I've heard this many times, and I'm going to get professional confirmation on this or not, that about 90% of what you do every single moment is coming from your subconscious. It's not your conscious, we're here, we're conscious. This isn't what's really driving us. 90-something% is what's floating around in the subconscious, which also includes things you learned when you were a kid. And we're still operating on that as adults. Like I love to say, hey, you're acting like a kid. You realize that? But you are, apparently. We want to give you the edge and the keys to get into your mind to make things work a little bit better for you. And that could be getting over anxiety. Maybe money's not working the way you wanted it to. You might have a block there. You may have fears, phobias. You want to stop smoking, lose weight, all of that. It comes down to hypnotherapy. And he is the man behind the unconscious edge. Let's give you that edge today and learn a lot. Dennis Marciniak joins us on the program. He is a hypnotherapist. Great to have you here. How's it going?
Great to be here. Ready and eager to share with your audience.
Yeah, and I'm going to share. I am a hypnotherapy cheerleader. This is, in my journey, one of the first things I gravitated to figure things out and move life forward. And wow, I knew it would be pretty good. I didn't realize how good it would be in terms of what I call connecting the dots to the past. And is that number reasonably accurate from what you hear? About 90% is what we do is our subconscious.
Definitely. I mean, if you hear hold on a second. Okay. If you hear Bruce Lipton speak, he'll even ascribe a larger value, like up to 95%. But definitely somewhere in that range. When we're very young, like between years, birth and 9 years old, we haven't really developed our critical capacity to critique and judge things around us. We're kind of in a very impressionable state. Now it's an alpha state in terms of brain frequency. And so, we accept things, we believe in Santa Claus and so many things that have been fed to us.
Sure.
But slowly we start to develop our own critical ability to, discern for ourselves. What happens though, we develop coping mechanisms when we're very young and impressionable. And those coping mechanisms serve a purpose, get us through certain, crises, so to speak, in our young life. But later on in life, they become patterns that we fall back into when we're stressed or when we're in situations that, kind of incapacitate us a little bit. And those coping mechanisms that we learned when we were 1 year old, 4 years old, 5 years old, they may or may not be appropriate when you're 35 years old and you're dealing with a crisis in your marriage or some other issue. So, the saying is, as far as your neurons in your brain, when they fire together, they wire together. So if you keep firing neurons in the same pattern, you develop habits, you develop automatic responses that may not serve you well in new and different situations. So,
do you feel that a lot of the stuff from our past, and they can be labeled traumas, and I know that's a challenging word for some because what conjures up immediately is, a car accident, a death in the family. Yes, that's a trauma. But I call them, those are the big T traumas. Then there's the little T traumas. It could be just a passing comment that you may have heard as a 7-year-old. You internalize it as it's for me. And then that has piloted your life. Is that some of the things that is holding us back?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a doctor some years ago. I think he passed in 2014. A Japanese gentleman that had done these studies on water crystals, and he would freeze water and then have them start to melt. And what he would do was take different words. It might be a negative word, or it might be a positive word, like, or expression like joy and love, or joy and gratitude. And he would just tape the words onto these glass jars, and then he would photograph the water crystals. And the water crystals, that were melting from a glass jar that had a positive expression on it, would be very beautiful and elegant crystals. And in some cases, when they had the negative words, the water wouldn't even crystallize, or in other cases, it would crystallize in a very jagged form. So we're much more impressionable or suggestible than we realize. And, a harsh word or harsh look sometimes can impact you more than you recognize or understand. And it's not so much to fault your parents or fault at adults that were very impressionable, making a strong impression on you when you're so young. But it's just for you to recognize that if in some situations or some instances you get triggered in a negative way, there's a solution to that. There's the possibility to explore getting free from that limiting action or limiting belief.
Do you believe that a lot of times, I'm real curious about this one, that we gravitate to the negative, or our subconscious does, to protect us?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some psychologists believe that we're actually hardwired for the negative out of self-preservation.
I'm not one of those. I'm not qualified to answer that, but that is my belief. And it starts in my mind where I find that most people try this. Think about the first memory you have as a child. The very first one. What comes up in your mind? I'm wondering, maybe guessing or betting, it's probably not a great memory for this reason. And the first one that comes to my mind, I believe I was 3. I was waving bye-bye, standing on a radiator, slipped and fell and cut my head open. And I remember Mom screaming, and we were in an apartment. And then I remember her running downstairs to a doctor, like, can you help him? And I remember him saying, I'm a dentist, I can't do anything. And that's my that's my first memory. And also in that same apartment, a bad sunburn, really bad. And I was probably 3.5 at that time. So I don't know if there's any credence to that, but that's where my thoughts are. Love yours.
Yeah, no, yeah. Hearing your story, I'm reminded. I have a stepdaughter who was 2 years old when I met her mother, and I was involved raising her, and we're still very close. And I have a son. One time my stepdaughter was roller skating out in the neighborhood, and she obviously face planted onto some stones and so forth, and she even had little cinders still stuck to her face and so forth. And yet she was like walking like a trooper to the house, and I encountered her first, and kind of brushed her off and gave her a hug, and then we got to the house where her mother saw her, and her mother started screeching and screaming, and and my stepdaughter was fine until her mother reacted in such a distressed way.
Got it.
And so then she started crying and screaming. So yeah, I mean, we're really impacted by the energy of people and circumstances that happen around us. And again, not the entertainment, but the advertising industry understands, how impressionable we are more so than we realize. And so, we're constantly bombarded with certain messages and so forth. And we respond to that more than we understand, more than we typically realize. So.
Yeah. Well, we've established that a lot of this is placed in our subconscious. We're piloted by that programming from back in the day, and that can hold us back from moving forward. Even just cut the comments, things somebody might have said to you, maybe something your parents said to you. They meant well, but you internalize it in a certain way, and then other kids roll off their shoulder and wouldn't even bother them. Getting into your subconscious using hypnotherapy, you're able to give us the keys to change that around, right?
Yeah, basically, if I'm walking through a field and there's been many people walking through that field before me, they've created a path, and that path seems the most logical and simple way to go through that field. But if I want to create a new path, I have to take steps to, in a sense, go forward and be a pioneer. We develop certain neurological pathways in our mind, and subconsciously that becomes the path of least resistance. And so we just easily fall into that same path. But if that path goes nowhere or takes us into danger, it behooves us to create a new pathway. And so through repetition, in part, but the biggest part is hypnosis is actually an overload of the conscious mind. When the conscious mind can only handle about 50 bits of information per second, subconscious mind is processing 11 million bits of information per second. So what happens, like if you were to go to someone and ask them for directions, say you're driving and you stop and you roll down your window and ask for directions, if the person starts speaking very quickly, you'll have to probably say, hey, slow down here. I mean, it's coming at me too fast. Information, I'm not processing it. My conscious mind is overloading. It's like, oh, hold down here. Well, with hypnosis, you're actually overloading the conscious mind so that part of you that's the critic that criticizes and analyzes and judges everything, that gets overloaded and set aside, so to speak, so that you can get into the unconscious or the subconscious mind, so that you're more malleable, you're more teachable, you're more open to receiving positive suggestions. Now, when I see a client, it's not just for me to come up with what I'm going to suggest to them. I mean, that's part of the process where we talk about what that client is trying to accomplish, what it is that they're experiencing in life. Maybe they're there for anxiety or stress. Maybe they're there for personal growth or quitting smoking. So we'll talk about their various experiences and basically come to an understanding of how we're going to approach this. And so the suggestions that I make are suggestions that the client already has agreed to or understands is going to be coming from me. So in the process, there's two ways to get someone into hypnosis. One is going for a deeply relaxed state. The other is a little bit more of a shock, where you overload the conscious mind and someone goes into that place of being receptive to suggestion. And it's again quite remarkable. I mean, it seems like too simple, but that's the part that I love about it.
I love the word suggestion, because, and I believe that leads us into what hypnotherapy is. So many people, myself included, before I had it, we think that the practitioner is controlling our minds. Like,
Right,
yeah, and
right.
it comes from TV and movies and shows where it's like you're getting sleepy with the pocket watch. You're getting sleepy. Or you will now bark like a dog. You will be
Right, right.
cluck like a chicken. Those are just stage shows, and most of them are set up, as I understand it. Um, you are giving us the keys to get inside our mind. You're not doing anything more than that, in my understanding, and I would love your thoughts on that. You're just allowing us to access our mind, and then once we have that word suggestions, giving suggestions of positive things. But if we don't want the suggestion, we don't believe the suggestion, or if you're going to try and get our sensitive information, credit card numbers, social security, we're not giving that up. It's even under hypnosis. You're not going to do something you would not normally want to do. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes. And I'm reminded of the movie Get Out, where he's stirring the teacup or coffee cup with a spoon, and that triggers the hypnosis state. So sometimes you just have to laugh when you see some of those representations of hypnosis. But it's been said that all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis. I don't have an agenda. I'm there to help the client access the limiting behavior or pattern, so that they can create new, more creative ways of dealing with certain situations and stress and so forth. Most people have triggers of some sort, that will kind of just get you off track, so to speak. And it's not so much that you go and change the past. You help people, in a sense, observe the past in a different light, so that they can see it and get freed, so that they can have a different reaction to that particular series of experiences. Talking about trauma, I had a death of my younger brother in the family many years ago. He was only 24 years old. And that was a very, very traumatic experience for me. And it was something that I carried for a long, long time. And it was through finally hypnosis, kind of stumbling into someone who was talking about hypnosis and trying it for myself, that it didn't change the fact that event took place, but somehow it changed the feeling that I had about it, and freed me in a way. Even with something like that, sometimes there's guilt patterns where if I had only done this, he would have still been alive, or if I had only made this phone call. It's like to have that opportunity to cherish that loved one in a way where you're free from all the extraneous judgments and judgments that you put on yourselves, in fact. But talking about
in those situations, and I relate. My dad passed when I was younger. Didn't have the best relationship with him. I still wonder, and this was when I was 21. I still wonder, have I processed all of that? Is there things floating out there? In fact, I'm going to say I know there are. And I haven't had hypnotherapy for that one reason. I've had it for others, but not that one. And quite honestly, Dennis, you bring your situation up. It reminds me of that I probably need to work through that, and that event probably is holding me back from certain things, and I might not even know it.
Probably, and there are a lot of different approaches to dealing with trauma. There's somatic experiencing where people feel that having actual birth and even the development in terms of an infant being on their belly and so forth. There's some people that say or experience that you can, in a sense, rewire some of those early childhood connections neurologically, and I'm sure that's true. There's a lot of psychology, energy psychology techniques, EFT tapping.
Sure.
There's a technique that I like particularly that's called havening. I think they all play a part. And I don't know that we necessarily wipe the slate clean, but to be able to have an opportunity to get a fresh look, or to release additional limiting patterns or limiting behaviors, there's definitely something to be said about that for sure.
And we're talking broadly about hypnotherapy now. Next time we get together, we'll go deeper into some of the other, I guess, modalities or forms of. Just to make everybody aware what's going on, is it true that you are in a form of a hypnotic state many times during the day, right before you go to sleep? You're in that state that you put somebody in intentionally if they want to work on, a certain situation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're constantly throughout the course of the day. I mean, you hop in your car and say you're going to your job, which is something you do every day at a particular time.
Sure.
And you hop in the car, and next thing you know, you're pulling into the parking structure, and it's almost like, how did I get here? You're listening to the radio, you're having a conversation with someone on the hands-free phone. You're not conscious in terms of what you're actually doing when you're driving, and it's a state of hypnosis, basically. There's that one day where you're supposed to make a side stop before you get to the office, and you just go on automatic pilot, and you arrive at the office and you go, oops, I forgot to stop to drop off the dry cleaning or whatever, So again, we go on autopilot often throughout the course of the day, and that's really that same state. Yeah,
and I wanted to bring that up because I think there's a misconception that it's completely different when you're hypnotized. You do it anyway. You do it to yourself. You don't even know you're doing it. And it's that vulnerable state is where the magic can take place. Great talking today. How do we connect with you, even if somebody has questions about this?
Well, my website is unconsciousedge.com. I'm also listed in, I graduated from HMI, Hypnosis Motivational Institute in Tarzana, California, and they have a website that I'm on also. But those are probably the best places.
It's a game changer. It's everything. We are being controlled by our unconscious mind, and I know it sounds kind of harsh, but I believe it's the truth, and it can change. And even blocks of making money. It almost sounds hard to even fathom, but many of us aren't making the abundance that we deserve because we don't realize that stuff is holding us back. Even, broad example here, we've heard this all the time. Your parents say, what are you doing? Money doesn't grow on trees. And
right.
That statement could be holding you back from making money because it's stuck in your mind. And now you're sabotaging every opportunity to make money and not even know you're doing it. And then you turn around and say, I can't believe that happened to me. I can't believe that sale fell through, whatever it is. So much more to talk about next time we get together, Dennis. Once again, your website is
unconsciousedge.com.
Yeah, I love that. You're giving us the edge to get inside the unconscious and be aware of all of this. Appreciate it, and looking forward next time we get together.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We're coming right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Jason Derulo. I love that music connects to people all over the country. But unfortunately, so does something else. Childhood hunger. 15 million kids struggle with hunger right here in America. And yet, every year, billions of pounds of surplus food in the U.S. go to waste instead of going to the children in need. Feeding America is working to change this. The Feeding America nationwide network of food banks rescues this surplus of food to help provide meals to families in virtually every community in the United States, including yours. But they just can't do this alone. Join me in the fight against hunger in America. For more information on what you can do to get involved, visit feedingamerica.org. That's feedingamerica.org. Together we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America. A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.